Yes, this is all part of the profession, but let's just be clear here. Jimmy Butler has not requested a trade out of Miami, but teams are poking around, especially because we're only 2 days from trade season opening up. So, Shams, what can we expect, especially when it comes to Jimmy Butler the next few months?
The Heat are open to listening to trade offers, but there's not that urgency in place right now, because you think about it, he is under contract this year, $49 million and a $52 million player option for next season. And that's why in all of this, there was the conversation about extension. No extension got done in the offseason, no extension yet this year. And the Heat don't have a level of urgency quite yet to go through with that, because he is under contract. And from Jimmy Butler's perspective, what other options are out there for him? And that's why, as I reported, it's been communicated in league circles, the Mavericks, the Rockets, the Suns, and the Warriors as potential teams that he would be open to. But there's not that urgency in place, as I keep reiterating. They've won 4 games in a row. They're in a very good stretch right now in the Eastern Conference. At the end of the day, it's going to be coming down to these conversations between the two sides.
So the temperature was pretty hot when it came to conversations, those little whispers, those little murmurs, but it seems like it's gone down a little bit. So
trade deadline's 2 months away.
That is true. So it's a slow roll here. But Perk, you've been adamant that the Heat need to move on from Jimmy. Where do you think he would actually fit best?
Well, I think all those places except for Houston, but I would like to add another spot there, another team in that place. And right now you're looking at Nikola Jokic. He's having a historical season, having the best season of his career statistically wise. Why not the Denver Nuggets? Why not the Denver Nuggets? Like, why is the Denver Nuggets not one of Jimmy's options? Why not go play alongside Nikola Jokic?
Good thing that we have front office insider Bobby Marks here. Bobby, how would that work potentially? Jimmy Butler, Denver Nuggets? Can you crank up that machine?
Yeah, we can do it. Perk, you ask, and we will deliver for you. I think certainly when you look at it from Denver's perspective, the big trade candidate would have to be Michael Porter Jr., right? Jamal Murray can't be traded. Aaron Gordon can't be traded. So when we have Porter Jr. going to certainly Miami here, and then, of course, Jimmy Butler going to Denver. Now, there's got to be some more pieces here. So this is kind of how we get a little bit more creative as far as contracts going out. We're going to add a player like Zeke Naji, and then we're going to add Dario Saric, and we're going to rope in Detroit here, certainly. And when you look at it, here is Detroit. We're just going to have a player sent out and a player like Bobby Clement, and we're going to have him go to Denver, for example. And then when you look at it, that trade works here. Certainly Detroit, because they've got cap space to absorb a contract. But when you look at it, and maybe we add some draft assets, but it's Porter and Jr. and Zeke Naji to Miami, Jimmy Butler to Denver, and certainly Dario Saric to Detroit. So that's something, you know, as far as getting Denver in the mix. Remember, Denver doesn't have a first-round pick to trade. They only have 1 second, so they're limited as far as assets to go out and make a Jimmy Butler-type trade.
You see that green box, big Perk. Do you think that works? Do you like that?
I love it, to be honest with you, because we've been asking for Jokic to get help, a guy that's going to actually help, that's going to move the needle when it comes down to the Nuggets, and Jamal Murray hasn't been that guy. Now, is Jimmy Butler #1 option for a championship contender? Absolutely not. But can he be a #2 option, #3 option, playing alongside Jokic and Murray? Absolutely he can. And I just want to know, why is he not on the list? But that absolutely makes sense for both sides, because if you're Miami, now you're getting a 6'10" Michael Porter Jr., a guy that can stretch the floor, a guy that can play off the ball, a guy that still, I believe, has a very high ceiling that could potentially go in that Heat culture and do a lot more than he's allowed to do with the Denver Nuggets.
Mid-range, he's the Prez. The Prez is cooking. And then he knocks down the 3. Now, next possession, if it's midi, #2 is glass. Do you think he called that?
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He had a hot night.
He did. He had a game-high 36 points. And then, of course, tough play turnover, the Kings hang on to win 111-109. Now, that was the Pelicans' third straight loss. They're 12th in the last 13 games. New Orleans is 5-21 this season, their worst record through 26 games in over a decade. The Pels haven't won consecutive games since the first 2 games of the season. So, with the unofficial trade season opening on Sunday, our own Bobby Marks, he is releasing his all-trade teams next week. And here's a sneak peek. Thank you, Bobby, for sharing it with us here on NBA Today. Of the first team, Dennis Schroeder from the Brooklyn Nets, Zach LaVine from the Bulls, Jimmy Butler, and a pair of injured Pelican stars in Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson. So, Bobby, let's focus in on Zion and Brandon Ingram. Where do you see them fitting?
Yeah, I think for Brandon Ingram, who's certainly out with this injury, I think the availability of him becoming a free agent, acquiring his bird rights is certainly something that's attractive here. And I think for me, it's San Antonio. That would make the most sense there. Just the ability to either extend him or sign him to a contract in the offseason here. Certainly with Victor Wembanyama on this roster, they've got some financial flexibility. They've got draft picks. So when you're looking at a player like Keldon Johnson and Zach Collins, that's 2 players. Remember, this team has a ton of draft picks. Let's just throw in this Chicago first, and that works as far as it for Brandon Ingram. Now, Zion is interesting here, certainly, just because he is injured right now. We don't know when he's coming back. For him to be on the court, that's how you can get the most value for him, either in a trade or with the Pelicans. Chiney, I've always circled, and we talked about it earlier in the week, Golden State would be certainly that team there for Zion here. And here's why. If you're looking for that next superstar that maybe has that upside, I think Williamson could be that guy if he's healthy. And when you look at it, what would New Orleans or Golden State have to go give out and trade? Andrew Wiggins certainly is that big trade number. And then you look at it certainly from a player like Brandon Podziemski, for example. And then we're going to put Kevon Looney in there. And that works there. So certainly Golden State, if you don't have to give up and you're looking for that potential all-star out there on a low risk there.
Wow, Bobby, that machine is hot because right now you're
we
saying
got a quarter of a tank of gas in that thing right now.
BI potentially to San Antonio, Zion potentially to Golden State. Shams, what do you see the Pelicans doing with this roster?
Their phone lines will be blowing up between now and February 6th because they've got so much talent on this team. You think about it, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, Trey Murphy III, C.J. McCollum, DeJounte Murray, Yves Missy. They've got so many bodies there that I think other teams look at that could help them. But it starts with Brandon Ingram because he's in the last year of his deal. Anytime a player is in that circumstance, either you're looking at a trade or an extension. And for Ingram, getting back on the floor is going to be big. He's rehabbing a significant ankle sprain right now. So getting him back on the court, seeing what his value is going to be. But I'm told they've gotten an uptick of calls in recent days on Ingram, on other players on their roster. Herb Jones is another guy that has gotten a ton of calls with the Pelicans, but they don't have an interest in moving him as of right now. So this is a Pelicans team to keep an eye on, and it really is going to start with Brandon Ingram. They are not in a position where they can just stand pat. I expect the Pelicans to make some sort of move.
Again, 2 days, players available. It's going to get very spicy very quickly. And
I'm on fire.